Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm here and excited.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I believe if what I understood Max saying last night, you were in the room last night when he got that phone call from the Steelers, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now that you've had a little time to process, what was that moment like to see Max get that phone call? He's a first rounder with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely surreal. Just knowing where Max came from and where he started, and the fact that we found him at such an infant stage of his athletic career, and we're able to kind of help to guide him through all the way leading up to that moment. And for me as a coach and as a mentor, it fulfilled my heart and kind of my mission as a coach, just being able to see a landing spot for him, and we believed in him from the moment I laid eyes on him on the basketball court to that point yesterday. It just took trust and hard work from Max to be able to really see him to that point. And so it was just a really fulfilling moment for myself and all the staff at East Los Angeles College.
That had to be just the most incredible moment and just a culmination of all the hard work he's put in and all the hard work you and your staff put into. I know you mentioned on the basketball court, obviously. When and how did he first get on your radar? And, looking at him, how did you say, hey, this guy has real potential here on the football field, a sport he's never played in his life?
Yeah, being here at East Los Angeles College, you really got to get creative at this level and trying to find unique talents to fulfill your rosters. And, offensive linemen are really hard to come by at any level. And our level is probably the hardest to find. And so, for me, I always try to get creative in finding unique talent. And I had a friend who was a travel basketball coach, runs a program called Elevate in Los Angeles. And I always told him, hey, if you have any bigger kids that maybe, good athletes, but maybe aren't going to be, potential Division I basketball players, obviously they have the skill sets and the size to transition to other sports, just let me know. And when he got Max, he called me right away and said, hey, I think I got one. And so I went to one of their games, and I said, after about 20 seconds, I said, sub him out, send him with me. I'm taking him over to ELAC, and we're going to run him through a couple drills. And so we were able to just kind of, I had him take about one or two positive steps in each direction. And I just knew, he's 6'6" and change. And at the time, he was only maybe about 255 pounds. But his body frame, his lower half was just really put together. And I knew he could put on weight to be able to carry, to keep his athleticism as well. And it's the perfect, ideal situation for an offensive tackle. He just didn't know that that's what he was, and so our job, as a staff here was to get him acclimated to the sport as quickly as possible, help him to feel comfortable and show him the light at the end of the tunnel. And it wasn't easy, but at least, we were able to get him into his next phase of college football.
Those early conversations with him and his family had to be pretty unique, given the fact that he had never played a down of football. And he even told us last night, his parents weren't exactly on board with him transitioning to football in college in that sense. So what were those early conversations like with Max, with his family, to get them on board with this process?
Yeah. So at first, I just told Max, trust me. You're gonna make a living doing this someday if you just trust me and stick with it. And so he did, and he started going. And about halfway through the year, he looked at me because he wasn't very good. Naturally, you're playing a college football sport against college football players, and you don't even know if the ball is stuffed or blown up. And so, he's trying to navigate through the sport while other players are trying to get scholarships for sport they've played for the last 15 years. And he got a little frustrated with it. And there was a time in the middle of the season he came to me and he said, Coach, I love you to death, but this just isn't for me. I just don't think I'm a football player. My mom says I should just go get a job and just finish school. I gave basketball a chance and I gave football a chance. And I said, you tell your mom that she's going to thank me because I am not letting you quit, and I'm not even letting you leave this practice right now. So get your butt in the locker room, get dressed, and meet me out there. And, I just kind of had to help him to understand that in football, it's always going to be a process, but the skill sets are different than they are in different sports where, a baseball or basketball where, the skill level is something that you have to develop with, years of practice. And in football, you can take a good athlete and really put them into football shape pretty quickly and get something good out of them if you know what you're doing. And I just asked him to trust me, and I told him to tell his mom and dad the same thing, that I would take care of him and that I promised it would work out for him. And at the time, even my coaches, they had kind of second guessed right off the bat and said, we can't even play this kid. He's going the wrong way and he doesn't know what to do. And I looked at them and I said, that kid is going to play, he's going to start, and he's going to play every single down for us because that kid's going to be a first-round draft pick someday. And they trusted me as well. So it worked out. Luckily, I was halfway correct.
What was your relationship like with him? And obviously we hear a little bit about, obviously you having to make sure he trusts you and instill a lot of confidence in him that, hey, you are going to get to this point. How do you describe the relationship the two of you have had and how it's transformed since you first saw him and brought him onto the football field?
I had to kind of be a form of a psychologist, a sports psychologist in a way, because I had to get to know him and what he wanted out of things. He's a reserved young man. He's not a real vocal, at the time, a vocal kid. And so, I had to try and navigate what, our conversations as to, what he was feeling and what he needed to know. And he didn't always know how to convey it to me in the appropriate way. And so I had to keep, and adjust my frame, my type of coaching, and to keep him with positive outlooks on things. And, some of my other coaches, they had to bring more out of him to get him more aggressive. So there's a big balance when it comes to football players in general, but especially someone that didn't grow up being coached like that. And so we had a great relationship. We always have. And I, I'm blessed and think that it'll be like that forever. But, a lot of the times I just had to be honest with him just to let him know, like, look, you're 6'6", 300 pounds now, and you're an athletically gifted talent. Trust me that's going to be more than enough to get your education paid for. So do it and see where it takes you from there. And I knew his ceiling, but he didn't believe his ceiling just yet. And I just knew once we got him to Arizona State and we got him into a year-round football environment that I knew he was going to take off. It was just a matter of convincing him to believe in himself. And once he did, the rest was history.
What was that turning point when you saw it click for him, when he really believed in himself and really saw, hey, this is a possibility for me at that next step?
There was a meeting in the midst of the year where the coaches were telling me, Max is starting to come along. We're starting to see what you're saying, Coach. This is during, I think it was maybe 2022 or 23. But, he's still going the wrong way. He's still doing this, but I think he's getting the grasp of it. And so I went into the meeting room and I said, Max, it was an offensive line meeting room. And I said, Max, stand up. And he stands up. And I said, here's a pen. I said, you go up there and draw up your favorite run play. And he looks at me, and my coaches look at me like, oh crap, this might not go very well. And he walked over and he tried his best, and it looked like, a young kid scribbling on their, notebook in class. It just didn't look very good. And at that moment, I looked at everybody in that room and I said, it is your job, Max. It is your job, Coach. It is your job to make sure he knows what we are running as quickly as humanly possible. That's what we're focused on. We don't have to worry about his athletically, gifted talent. We don't have to teach him to be fast or big or strong. We have to make sure he knows the concepts of football. And so we kind of re-honed in on the mental part of the game probably after about week 3. And once he started to grasp the concept of, pass protection and what we were asking him to do, I mean, it was like an exponential growth from then on. And that's when he started to really figure out, hey, I can really do this, and I can really do this at the next level. And the recruitment came right after. And then, that'll make a kid, buy himself a lot more time when he realizes, wow, there's a lot of people taking a lot of interest in me. And, and then there's just that communication from then on, just keeping him on the right path and letting him know, like, this is real. And, once he got the grasp the mental part of it, he took off.
We are speaking with Bobby Godinez. He was Max Iheanachor's junior college coach at East Los Angeles College. You talk about the mental aspect there, but the physical aspect of his development is just so incredible to read about. He comes to you guys in 2021, plays one game, as you've said, is running the wrong way, is not able to draw up a play. He's at Arizona State by 2023, and he's a first-round draft pick in 2026. From a physical perspective, to what do you owe the just pace of that development over 5 years?
Yeah, I have had a lot of experience with body types. Like I said, we have to get really creative here at East Los Angeles. And so I'm very big into finding good, tall body types and really kind of looking past what their experience within the sport bring, and Max obviously had the frame at 250 pounds. And I told him, I said, look, I'm going to get you there, but you're, again, going to have to trust me. And I can't tell you how many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches I made him eat every single day, how many pastries I made him and whatever we could find, and gave him a diet plan and said, look, it's an equation. This is how much you need to eat every single day, and I'm going to be calling and checking up on you every single day and making sure you're eating something. And, before, in no time, I mean, he was 290 pounds, and that 6'6", 290 pounds is what it looks like at that next level. And he eventually got up to 315, and that's what it looks like now. And so, I know consistency for anything, any type of skill is the key. And it's the same thing with, developing your body. It's consistency working out and consistency with your diet. Sometimes they just don't know what that actually looks like. And so if there was anything that I was really going to take control of, it was force feeding him almost literally.
How do you describe the type of player the Steelers are getting off the field, or I should say the type of person the Steelers are getting off the field in Max?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I told his mom and dad last night, I mean, they can thank themselves for this product, this final product, because his upbringing was so strong. His parents were such an integral part of his life that it made coaching him a lot easier. I mean, with the junior college students, I mean, you get everybody from all different walks of life, and you really having to navigate upbringings. For him, we didn't have to do that because he had such a strong family bond, and so their support really, really pushed him through, and it made everything so much better with Max. I couldn't imagine finding a better individual on and off the field, than Max. He's smart, charismatic. He's just a good person, And so when trying to kind of evaluate someone to like an NFL level, I mean, those are the intangibles he needs, right? It's that character and that drive from a person. Well, he had that. We never had an issue with him ever. As a matter of fact, we wanted him coming back as he did this past year to talk to our team about acting right and making sure that, you persist and do all the things that he ended up doing, and I can't speak enough about the type of person that Max is.
Yeah, when you have a situation like this, what does that do for a program like yours that you can use him as an example?
Oh, well, we're going to use it. I mean,
as you should.
It's funny enough. I have another one here right now that's, about to sign a scholarship, and he's a little bit taller than Max and great size with just as much talent, and he's going to take the same path. And I got him, with a couple of help from an assistant coach or two, but ultimately it was Max. He's a friend of Max's, and Max said, you got to go to ELAC. They do something that nobody else does, puts their thumb on kids like us and sends us to the next level. And so he actually has already helped us to gain more talent from different walks of life that maybe didn't play football. I can't tell you how many kids have approached me from other sports, and so with this mass amount of attention that we're getting right now, it's awesome because I know that there are so many other, basketball players out there that are sitting there saying, shoot, I might not get this scholarship that I think, but I am 6'5", and I do think I can do something, athletically and get paid to do it, whether it's in college or the next level. And maybe they're taking a look at this story and saying, hey, let me give Coach a call and see if we can do the same, which we absolutely could.
Is there a moment or a memory that sticks out in your mind that just sums up Max as a whole? I'm sure that's probably complicated to do.
Well, like I said, he was such a reserved kid. You didn't get a lot of, reactions or responses. But I just remember, and I think one of my coaches posted it somewhere, where I said, Max is the most athletic person on that side of the ball. Like, that's how I know how high he's going to go. And a couple of the O linemen and a couple of the D linemen were like, no, I'm faster than Max. I'm faster. You can't outrun me. He's 320 pounds. And we lined him up on the line and raced him, and Max won, and it was the first time we really saw the kind of elation from Max that, I'm proving you guys wrong. And it was something that we loved seeing because we wanted more of that emotion and that energy to help, keeping his confidence going in the right direction. But it's one of the things I remember most. But I can't tell you there's no memory that I liked more than last night, giving him a big hug and him thanking me just for standing by him and making him stand and go through this, and he knows just where he was at and what we had to talk. I mean, he sent me a text message right before his last game, at Arizona State, and thanked me, and it's just, this is why you do it as a coach, because like I tell other coaches, sometimes you don't see the benefits from what you do on a daily basis until they're done, and so to really see it when he's finishing college, but knowing that there's, a lifetime of football still left for him. I mean, it was just such a great feeling. And so that I remember probably the most, those two here at the end.
Knowing his skill set and watching his development, where do you feel his ceiling is here in the NFL?
I mean, I watch a lot of football. I played at a high level. I've coached a lot of different athletes. He's as good as I've ever seen. And I just, knowing his character, knowing his cerebral ability, and I know that's what, you hear the commentators, realizing, well, he's only got a couple years of football under his belt, so he's going to have to learn protections and all these different things. I would contest that. That kid is brilliant. He already knows what most of those kids know, if not more. And like I said, his skill set, his athletic ability is so high. Once he gets in with an O-line coach, an offensive coordinator that can give him the information and knowledge to help him to continue to progress, he's an all-pro type of player. Like, that is what Pittsburgh is getting. And I can, beyond just a guarantee, that's what he's going to be, because he's got everything you could ever want. He's, to me, a top 5 pick in a top 25, top 32, body, because of the fact that he just started to play 4 years ago or 3 years ago.
Well, Bobby, we thank you so much for your time, and just a big congratulations to you as well. We're going to get to speak with Max later on here at the Steelers facility today, and we're really looking forward to getting to know him as a person and as a player. So congratulations again. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of the weekend, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.